The Society of the Spectacle by Debord. Read by SteaDyy ΔΕλτα. Part 2. The Commodity as a Spectacle. 41. The domination of the commodity was at first exerted over the economy in an obscure manner. The economy itself, the material basis of social life, remained unperceived and not understood, like the familiar which remains unknown. In a society where the concrete commodity is rare or unusual, it is the apparent domination of money which presents itself as an emissary armed with full powers, which speaks in the name of an unknown force. With the Industrial Revolution, the division of labor in manufactures, and mass production for the world market, the commodity appears in fact as a power which comes really to occupy social life. It is then that the political economy takes shape, as the dominant science and as the science of domination. 42. The spectacle is the moment when the commodity has attained the total occupation of social life. The relation to the commodity is not only visible, but one no longer sees anything but it. The world one sees is its world. Modern economic production extends its dictatorship extensively and intensively. In the least industrialized places, its domination is already present with a few star commodities, and as imperialist domination by zones which are ahead in the development of productivity. In these advanced zones, social space is invaded by a continuous superimposition of geological layers of commodities. At this point, in the Second Industrial Revolution, alienated consumption becomes for the masses a supplementary duty to alienated production. It is all the sold labor of a society which globally becomes the total commodity, for which the cycle must be continued. For this to be done, it is necessary for this total commodity to return as a fragment to the fragmented individual, absolutely separated from the productive forces operating as an ensemble. Thus, it is here that the specialized science of domination must in turn specialize. It fragments itself into sociology, psychotechnics, cybernetics, semiology, etc., watching over the self-regulation of all the levels of the process. 43. Whereas in the primitive phase of capitalist accumulation, political economy sees in the proletarian only the worker, who must receive the minimum indispensable for the conservation of his labor power without ever considering him in his leisure, in his humanity. This position of the ideas of the dominant class is reversed as soon as the degree of abundance attained in the production of commodities demands a surplus of collaboration from the worker. This worker, suddenly washed of the total scorn which is clearly shown to him by all the modalities of organization and surveillance of production, finds himself each day outside of production, seemingly treated as a grown-up, with a zealous politeness under the mask of a consumer. Then, the humanism of the commodity takes charge of the leisure and humanity of the worker, simply because political economy can and must now dominate these spheres as political economy. Thus, the perfected denial of man has taken charge of the totality of human existence. 44. The spectacle is a permanent opium war whose aim is to make acceptable the identification of goods and commodities, and of satisfaction with survival augmenting according to its own laws. But if consumable survival is something which must always increase, this is because it never ceases to contain privation. If there is nothing beyond augmented survival, no point where it might stop its growth, this is because it is not beyond privation, but is privation become enriched. 45. With automation, which is both the most advanced sector of modern industry and the model where its practice is perfectly summed up. The world of the commodity must surmount the following contradiction. The technical instrumentation, which objectively eliminates labor, must at the same time conserve labor as a commodity and as the only source of the commodity. In order for automation or any other less extreme form of increasing the productivity of labor not to diminish the actual social labor necessary for the entire society, new jobs must be created. The tertiary sector, services, represents an immense extension of continuous rows of the army of distribution and a eulogy of present-day commodities. The tertiary sector is thus a mobilization of supplementary forces, which opportunely encounters the necessity for such an organization of rearguard labor in the very artificiality of the needs for such commodities. 46. Exchange value could originate only as an agent of use value, but its victory by means of its own weapons created the conditions for its autonomous domination. Mobilizing all human use and seizing the monopoly of its satisfaction, exchange value has ended up by directing use. The process of exchange became identified with all possible use and reduced use to the mercy of exchange. Exchange value is the condottiere of use value, which ends up carrying on the war for itself.